What's up, guys? In this video, where to stay in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This is going to be a little bit different than other where to stay videos online that are all about showing you fancy hotels and rooftop pools. This is different. In this video, we're talking about logistics because logistics can really make or break your experience. And the logistics that you're optimizing for are going to be different for different types of people. If you're in your 20s, maybe you're optimizing for partying and you want logistics that are good for partying. If you're a young family, you probably want something quieter. So everybody is a little bit different. And in this video, we're going to break down all the different main hub neighborhoods in Rio de Janeiro that are popular among foreigners and share some pros and cons of each. So I'm going to hit this video off with a curveball in terms of where to stay. And I wanted to tell you guys about an area called Niterói. So Niterói is on the other side of the bay from Rio de Janeiro. So technically not part of the Rio municipality, but it has very direct access to the city of Rio via a bridge as well as various ferries. So there's ferries that go right into the center of Rio from the center of Niterói and also from this area down here. So it's very much a part of the fabric and identity of Rio de Janeiro. And some of the best beaches are down here. And so if you were maybe like a young guy in your 20s, I could see doing maybe a month in Niterói, spending some time there. If you want to be away from the gringos and kind of be a little bit more unique, a little more special, learn Portuguese, there's going to be less English over here. And there's some pretty cool beaches. So this one's quite famous, the Praia de Itacoatiara. So, you guys can check out some photos, classic. So these beaches out here are actually quite nice. And if you keep going, even some of the towns out near the lake here and the lagunas can actually be quite nice as well. So out east, pretty much this is all ignored out east everywhere. Other than basically Búzios and Arraial do Cabo and Cabo Frio. So gringos definitely know about this area out here. Búzios is very famous. People know about this out here, but nobody really knows about Saquarema, which can be pretty cool and has nice beaches and everything. Nobody knows about Niterói. So this whole area I think is very underrated. So there's the curveball for the start of this where to stay episode. But let's start getting into Rio de Janeiro proper. So everybody wants to be in Copacabana or in Ipanema or in Leblon. And these are kind of the three most famous, most typical neighborhoods of Rio de Janeiro. When you see the movies, this is where it all happens, in Copacabana, in Ipanema, and in Leblon here. Now, if you had to guess which area is the nicest, which area is the least nice, do you know? Okay. Well, Copacabana is known as being the more rundown of the three. Being the more, let's call it the everyman's beach of the three. So it's a slightly bigger beach. It's more inward to the bay. And Copacabana is quite large. There are some favelas here around the perimeters. And it can be quite dangerous, but overall still, lots of infrastructure for digital nomads and travelers. And I would have no problem staying here, but I know that I would have to be really sharp, especially at night. But it's totally possible to stay. A lot of the hotel and Airbnb options that you'll find are in Copacabana. Now, Copacabana is quite big, so there are lots of sort of micro regions within Copacabana. If you come all the way out east, you have this area called Leme, and you have this fort that you can hike up to, which is fun. And you have some hiking here. And then you have Lemi, and then, kind of the main area of Copacabana. And then as you come over here towards the end of the beach, you have the famous Pedra do Arpoador, which is a famous rock people chill at during sunsets. You also have here the, what's it called? The Flintstone Beach. So the famous Flintstone Beach is right here. And so you have the fort here as well, which is kind of a fun place to come. It's very safe. There's some cafes. And because it's sort of associated with the military, because it's a fort, it's quite safe here. And has some pretty good views of the bay and this whole area. So of the Copacabana, like if I had to be anywhere on the Copacabana beach, I probably want to be right in here, at the furthest west or southern point of Copacabana, near the fort and near Arpoador. Now this is Copacabana, and it sort of flows into Ipanema. Now Ipanema is sort of the middle between Copacabana and Leblon, both physically and also in terms of, socioeconomic status, I guess you could say. So Copacabana is the lowest, Ipanema is a bit more rich, and then Leblon is the richest. Leblon is the nicest. It has the most expensive real estate in Rio de Janeiro. So this is where the most high-end stuff is going on. Ipanema is a little bit bigger. It takes up more of the beach here. It flows into Copacabana, which is both good and bad. It backs onto the Lagoa, which is really quite interesting because then you have these, running and biking lanes along the lake, which are fun as well. So you have this dynamic where you have the lake on one side, which is great, and then you have the ocean on the other. So being right in here between the lake and the ocean is a great place to be. If I was going to stay in Ipanema, I'd maybe stay on the Arpoador side, which can be cool as well because you get access to this area, the outdoor gyms, the sunsets, etc. If I was here for a short stay, maybe I'd be here. Or you could also be on this other side here where you're sort of near the park. You have direct access to the Lagoa and you have access to the beach as well. And then you have Leblon close by so that you can walk to Leblon or take a scooter or a short Uber, and you can easily go to the bars and, all the events and stuff in Leblon as well. So think about, even in Ipanema, what side you're going to be on. You probably ideally want to be on this side. You could also be at Arpoador. You definitely don't want to be too close to this favela area up here in the northeast of Ipanema. And it gets a little bit sketchy on some of these side streets between Ipanema and Copacabana as well. And I think it's a little bit noisier here on this eastern side of Ipanema overall. And this western side, well, it does have a lot of hostels and bars, but I think this is probably the side that you want to be on. And then there's basically this canal, and on the other side of the canal starts Leblon. So Leblon, again, nicest area. You have a huge mall here called Shopping Leblon, which has everything that you could need, movies, restaurants, etc. You have upscale stores like Decathlon, which I guess isn't upscale, but maybe I should say international stores as well. And you have pretty much everything you need. You have hardware stores, you have tons of bars. Some of the most famous bars are Joby. This has been around for a long time, and Botafogo Belmonte, of which I believe it's a chain, and they have multiple Belmontes. And so if you want to be at the bars, being somewhere near Joby and near Belmonte, this is kind of where you want to be. And there's a couple intersections here that are just, chock full of bars. And then the other thing that's cool about Leblon is you do have access to a little bit of trails in here as well. Unfortunately, favelas as well. But you have some lookout points and some miradors, so you can get a little bit of access to nature. And then, everything in the larger Rio de Janeiro is what we're going to talk about next. So that was kind of the overview of the big three: Copacabana, Ipanema, and Leblon. And now let's talk about some other picks. You guys might be curious about some other areas. So in terms of other areas, we have the Baja de Tijuca area down here. And then we also have some of the downtown areas as well. We have Botafogo, which isn't exactly downtown, but it's on the way. You have Flamengo. You have Laranjeiras, which is quite dangerous and I would mostly avoid. You would have Santa Teresa, which is pretty cool in some areas, also dangerous, but pretty cool. And then you have Lapa, which is home to some museums and some downtown attractions, and also to a famous outdoor party that people come to. And so you have some stuff going on down here. This area has a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it's not well taken care of. And in Latin America, there are some cities where the downtown is just a no-go zone. Some cities in Latin America, the downtown is quite nice, and in some areas, it's zombie land. And in Rio, unfortunately, downtown is zombie land. It can be extremely dangerous after dark, to the point where you literally wouldn't even want to leave your hotel after dark if you were anywhere in downtown or Lapa. The other thing worth mentioning is that these beaches here, you cannot swim. It's prohibited. There's too much bacteria, etc. You will not see Brazilians in the water here, and you can actually see by the the street view that there's really nobody getting in the water on these beaches. So people know this, that the swimmability begins at Copacabana. And this little inlet beach in Botafogo, you cannot swim here. This beach, the Praia do Flamengo, you cannot swim here either. And then, of course, certainly anything in the bay of Guanabara, you cannot swim anything here. I would not swim here on the Niterói beaches until you get outside the bay. And then starting here at Piratininga, I think this starts getting to be, swimmable and acceptable. I think even Prainha here is fine, definitely. But certainly anything within the bay, you can't swim. And so some people who would be newbies to Rio, they might think, okay, well, I'm going to book an Airbnb, right here near the beach in Botafogo or Flamengo. But you can't go in the water, which sucks. Like, why be in Rio and not even be in front of this like fake beach, essentially, tempting you, but you can't go in the water. Better than nothing to get some ocean breeze, but certainly not ideal. So Botafogo is pretty famous for bars. There is a good amount of nightlife here. There's nightclubs, there's botecos and small bars. So there is a lot of nightlife here, but personally, I wouldn't stay here. You also have the Humaitá and Lagoa area. Some of this is actually quite nice. It's not bad. You have the Jardim Botânico here, which is quite famous. And this is like connected right in with the trails. So there's lots of hiking trails that you can get to leaving from the Jardim Botânico and leaving from this Horto area. And then, the trails kind of go in all along here. So that is kind of a cool aspect of things. Like, you could maybe stay around this lake. Remember, you can't go in the lake, but the lake is actually nicer than Botafogo. Botafogo is a little bit more everyman's, whereas the Lagoa is a little bit more nice. You will see, historic mansions and some nice buildings and stuff like that around here. It's quite nice. Some pretty good nature. So, being around here could technically be a play. I think the real estate will probably be a little bit cheaper than being direct oceanfront. And if you're into hiking and nature, this could be doable. Botafogo starts getting loud and a little bit more dangerous, so I probably wouldn't stay in here necessarily. And then as you get into Flamengo, it's, same kind of thing as Botafogo, same kind of vibe. So it has some bars, but less. It's a little bit quieter. And then Santa Teresa is this sort of vibey hill area that in some ways might remind you of Lisbon or Portugal. Like this almost looks like it could be Portugal. They have the streetcar lines and everything. So fun for a visit. It is Santa Teresa really borders on a lot of bad areas. So that's something that you got to keep in mind, because then everything on the other side of Santa Teresa is like a no-go zone. Like this whole downtown area is a no-go zone. This is a gigantic favela here. This is a favela that's basically in Santa Teresa. More favela here. So there is sort of like this vibey part of Santa Teresa near the cable car, but there's also a huge amount of favela both in Santa Teresa and, right kind of on the outside as well. And again, Lapa, Centro, all very dangerous. There is some famous stuff to visit here, but I would say if you have to come here, just, take an Uber in to come see some stuff, and do it in the morning, do it in the day. You don't want to be around here at night. So that's probably the biggest number one mistake that people make, is getting an Airbnb in the center. I've heard this a million times. I said, bro, I booked a 1-week Airbnb in the center and I couldn't even leave my place. It was terrible. So don't do that. Now, I want to tell you about this next area called Tijuca. And this is growing in popularity among expats because it's safer, it has a cleaner beach, it has newer buildings, overall solid infrastructure, and starts feeling a little bit more like Florida. Like you look at this on Street View, and this basically looks like it could be Florida. It could be, Fort Lauderdale or something like that, right? So it's a very different vibe and dynamic than up here in the Ipanema, Leblon type of bubble. So out here, it's still very Brazilian. Obviously, there's not, there are gringos, but it's still primarily upper middle class and upper class Brazilians that are living in this area. So Tijuca is huge. It's a little bit more car dependent, though you should be fine with Uber in most cases. You have malls here, you have bars, you have a huge stretch of beach, and the water is significantly cleaner out here than it is in Ipanema and Leblon and Copacabana for a lot of reasons. You have a couple favelas here, Rocinha and Vidigal, and due to these mega favelas as well as a bunch of smaller ones as well, a lot of trash and waste from this area ends up in the water in this area. And so for that reason, and just the sheer amount of people that visit Ipanema, it's just not the cleanest water there. So for people who really want it, they're kind of optimizing for cleaner water, they want to go in the ocean every day, this is what I would recommend for you, is to come out to Tijuca. Now there's areas even further called Recreio dos Bandeirantes. This is starting to get really, really far if you ever have to come into Rio and getting quite far from the airport. So nice beaches the further and further you go. And of course, as you keep going, you'll get all the way out eventually to Angra dos Reis and Ilha Grande, which are super famous. You have Paraty out here, which is also very famous. So some of the beaches out here are some of the most beautiful in the world. Obviously, you're no longer in the city, you're no longer in Rio at this point, but just keep in mind, if you are visiting Rio, if you're visiting Brazil, and you want to see some of the best beaches in the world, come out here, keep coming west from Rio. Essentially, all these beaches in between Rio and Sao Paulo, this entire coastline is super, super nice. So you can get out of the city, get out of the urban environment. And, there's even accommodations on this island, or you can be on the mainland. And there's lots of little towns in here where you can find accommodation and access to incredible nature. So coming back to the city, you wouldn't want to be in Bandeirantes. It's a little bit too far, but Tijuca is entirely doable. So if I had to do a month in Rio, I probably would stay in Tijuca. There's a lot of pockets of Tijuca, so it depends kind of what you're optimizing for within Tijuca. It's a large area. I know this video has probably gone on long enough already, but I wanted to put this option in your mind as well. So in this video, we've gone over the 4 or 5 main areas of Rio. Niterói and out east, you have the Copacabana, Ipanema, Leblon bubble. You have the Centro to Botafogo inland area where you can't swim. You have the Lagoa area as well. You have Tijuca out west. And so those are kind of like your main 5 areas where you could consider staying in Rio de Janeiro. And by the way, we have a Telegram group, the Brazil Enthusiast Telegram group, with over 500 people. There should be a link in the description to join our group. So if you're visiting Brazil, you want to meet other expats and digital nomads, join up in the group. And if you want to work with us directly, you want to speak to us right away, there's a link in the description to book a call with us and become our client. Maybe you need a Brazil digital nomad visa or investor visa or something else. Book a call. Let's get the process started. Hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.